O projeto Pensar e Fazer Arte do GEP, Grupo de Estudo e Pesquisa em Interdisciplinaridade, FAFICLA, Faculdade de Filosofia, Comunicação, Letras e Artes e Departamento de Inglês, tem a grata satisfação de receber nos estúdios da TVPUC, da TVPUC, o professor David Heathfield e a professora Vera Cabrera Duarte, para a segunda parte da entrevista intitulada Storytelling, que vai nos ser apresentada por David Heathfield. David, the English Department of the Catholic University of São Paulo, the project Living Drama, coordinated by Professor Vera Cabrera Duarte, Associação de Cultura Inglesa for having sponsored your coming to Brazil, the project To Think and Make Art, coordinated by me and JEPI, Group of Studies and Research on Interdisciplinarity, coordinated by Professor Ivani Fazenda, would like to thank you very, very much for making the videotaping of this program possible. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here to talk about storytelling and teaching. I would like to tell our audience that this is the second program on storytelling by David Heathfield.
And as I said earlier, I really do appreciate this invitation from PUC and from the Cultura Inglesa to be here, and I'm having a great time. Thank you to Vera for the invitation especially.
Pleasure.
It's an honor to receive you here in our program.
Thank you, Claudia.
David, I would like to go on asking you a very, very tricky and at the same time naive question.
Tricky question.
Yes, it's generally more tricky than naive. Although many teachers at all levels say a lot of beautiful things about the process of inclusion, the acceptance of diversity, different religions, nationalities, sexual preferences, they still have, as the schools normally have, a great deal of crystallized prejudice. Do you think that by telling people stories from different parts of the world, as you do, right, is a way to avoid prejudice, to respect other people's way of living and thinking?
Absolutely. For me, storytelling, what excites me about storytelling is that bridging of cultures. It's one of the main driving factors in my work. And there is so much prejudice in the world. In the UK at the moment, there's a lot of prejudice towards many Islamic countries, for example, yes, among non-Islamic people. But there are such great stories that teach us so much that come from those regions. And just by sharing those stories, I believe it doesn't matter if you are not from that part of the world, you can still appreciate and share that culture.
Of course.
You can bring that story in. I mean, a good example would be a story that I have often told, which I think does deal with the issue of prejudice. But it's also a joke story. And it's one of many, many stories about the character Nasruddin Hodja. You might be familiar, I don't know, with this character. Nasruddin, okay. Yes. Nasruddin is a character featuring in hundreds, if not thousands, of stories in the Middle East. But those stories have travelled right across Asia, North Africa, the Ottoman Empire, former Ottoman Empire, into the Balkans, Southern Europe, Russia. And they're told in so many parts of the world, and they just are very short, very pithy, and always teach us something. One of my favourites is this. Shall I share this story?
Yes, please.
Yes,
yes?
please.
Yes.
Okay,
and
I will.
I would like you to look at that camera.
Very well.
As if you're telling the...
I'm telling it to you.
Yes,
right
very
now.
good. To our audience.
I am telling it to you. So Nasruddin, the wise fool, Nasruddin, left his home country. He needed to go to where he had never been before. And as he travelled towards that foreign land, he wondered, would he be welcomed? He was afraid that he would be ignored. He was concerned that people might insult him, turn away from him. He became terrified that he might be attacked, targeted. So terrified he became that when he saw, as he arrived in that new land, people walking towards him, he saw them as different, with clothes that were different. Their way of walking was foreign. He saw a wall, and in his fear, he climbed over that wall and found himself in a place of death, a graveyard. And in that graveyard, he found a freshly dug grave. And he climbed down into that grave, and he lay there in the bottom of the grave, trembling. Now, the strangers from this other land, coming in the opposite direction, had seen this rather unusual behaviour of a man climbing over a wall. So when they came to that place, they, in their curiosity, climbed over that wall and found themselves in that graveyard and looked around and found that grave, went to that grave and looked down, smiling benevolently. Tell us, if you don't mind, why are you here? Nasruddin looked up at these kind faces. It's rather difficult to say. I am here because of you. And you perhaps are here because of me.
Wonderful.
It's a story that takes, you have to have a moment's reflection at the end.
Of course, of course. And the more you reflect upon it, the more you learn. It all depends on what kind of mind you have, right?
Exactly, and the context and so many factors, yeah.
Very. Is there anything you'd like to add, darling?
No, it reminded me of the story of the deer and the jaguar.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's the deer and the jaguar because they were afraid of each other.
But for me, there's an unspoken good message in this story. In the deer and the jaguar, we have this, well, are they ever going to resolve the differences? Here, there's, well, what happened next? And I don't know about you, but for me, what I imagine happens next is that they help this stranger out of the grave,
sure.
and they go back over the wall, and together they travel, and they share their stories.
Yes.
And also that reminded me of the bridge, the story
you told us this morning.
you told this morning.
Well, do you want me to tell that story as well? Or is there, it's up to you, up to you.
The bridge is a fantastic story. Could you tell us?
Okay, I'll be very happy to tell the story.
Well, thank you. I'd love to.
You want to hear it again?
Yes.
I'll tell it to the camera. There were two shepherds, and the shepherds had lived side by side as close friends since they were boys. Their houses were nearby, each had their own flock of sheep, but there was no barrier between them. Only sharing and love and mutual respect, until one day one of the shepherds looked at the other shepherd's flock of sheep and said, "You see that lamb following your ewes? That lamb should be with my flock. It's one of mine." "No," said the friend. "See how it follows my flock. It is clearly one of mine." "Are you, friend, refusing to give me my sheep back?" Soon a dispute. It escalated. The two friends stood face to face. Angry words were spoken. Voices were raised. They nearly came to blows. But before that happened, they turned away from each other and each went to his own house. And from that moment, the friendship was broken. No more words were spoken between them. They did not even look at each other. One day, a stranger appeared. He came over the hill. He carried a bag upon his back. One shepherd called him, "Friend, you are a workman, a carpenter, I am sure. Come, with your tools, you can do something for me. I will pay you well if you will build between this house and that house a fence. Make it strong and tall, so that no sheep may jump over it, so that no man may see over it. Do this and I will pay you." It was late, and the shepherd went to his bed, but he could not sleep. For that stranger, who had not spoken a word, he could hear him working outside. He was sawing, banging, hammering. In the morning at first light, the shepherd got out of his bed and found that stranger standing in his doorway. He already had his bag on his back. What, have you finished already? It cannot be. The stranger walked away. The shepherd came out of his house and found that between his own house and the other shepherd's house, there stood the most beautifully made wooden bridge. And stepping onto the bridge from the other side was the other shepherd. "What a fine idea!" exclaimed the other shepherd. "To build a bridge between us, to mend our friendship. This is truly a wonderful act." And the two friends, they met in the middle of that bridge and they embraced. And tears flowed. Their friendship was mended. And then one shepherd, the shepherd who had had the work done, looked and saw, climbing the hill in the distance, that stranger who had never spoken. And he called to him, "Friend, come back. The work you have done is good. Come back, I have not paid you." And the stranger turned, and he spoke for the first time, and his voice carried all the way to the bridge. "I must go on. There are always more bridges to build."
Oh, this is fantastic.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Yes.
It is a beautiful story.
It's a beautiful story.
I heard that story from an Australian storyteller who lives in the UK called Eric Madden. I like to acknowledge who I heard the story from, but this is my retelling of that story. And I believe it goes back to a story told in the Appalachian Mountains. But I think that story echoes across many faiths and religions as well. And we can all recognize that reconciliation. And we can very often, when I talk about that story with students, they will look at it on not just a personal level, but on a national or even a global level about conflict and resolution.
And it gives us the impression of inclusion, i.e. how to accept, how to love people, how to have more brotherhood in the world.
But often there is that external factor, the helper.
The helper.
Who, whether that helper is coming from outside or it may be coming from inside ourselves, we need that switch to be flicked, that we can have that. They're seeing, what a ridiculous thing to have this dispute over one lamb.
One lamb.
And also it's the role of a teacher to be this bridge,
Yes.
to become the bridge, to avoid prejudice in the classroom, among students, at school. Mainly, well, what impressed me most when I first met you, David, was not only the beautiful way you have, to tell stories, but how you respect other people's culture and your willingness to bridge cultures. The Kids Out website you showed this morning, and how children can respect other cultures and the different people in the same classroom and with special difficulties also.
And this is an example of of what an educated man is or should be.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Thank you, I accept all that. And I would just say what I'm doing is what I love. It's my passion. I cannot say this is work for me.
Good. We cannot do anything if you don't love the thing we do. Right, Vera? You with your living drama, David with his storytelling.
Intercultural storytelling.
Intercultural storytelling.
When I deal with it's exactly what I feel when I deal with my project to think and make art.
What I would love to happen is while I'm here in Brazil, 'cause I'm only here for a few days and I've only just arrived really, is perhaps to hear some Brazilian stories or legends or traditions. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but
Yes. Have you heard of Boto, the pink Boto, the dolphin, the pink dolphin from Amazon River?
I'm sure I've seen a wildlife documentary on television.
It
about
looks like
the river.
it looks like a dolphin.
But
Yes,
does it have
but
quite a long nose?
a long nose.
That's right.
And he was a hat when transformed into into a human being in order to hide this enormous nose of his.
A shapeshifter.
Yes,
Yes.
a shapeshifter.
And he goes to the village when there are dances, and he seduces beautiful young ladies.
Taking
That's
them
the
to the bed
legend.
of the rivers, or having sexual intercourse with them and
Making love with them.
making love with them, and after this they get pregnant and they generally come back to the village having a son or a daughter in their bosom, in their womb, without knowing who the father is.
Wow. And I wonder if that son or daughter, when they're born, is able also to shapeshift.
Possibly.
It
Who
reminds
knows?
me, I mean, these stories echo, don't they? There's many, many Scottish stories about the Selkies, the seal people, who, when they're on land, shed the seal skins and become human form. So it just rings so many bells, and these things cross cultures. So can you tell me more?
It's fantastic. And when they are asked who the father when the women are asked who the father of their sons or daughters are, they don't know what to answer. So they generally say that they were sons and daughters of the Boto.
Of the Boto.
Boto's the father.
Boto is the father.
Talking about Boto, Claudio has a present to you, David. He has made an English version of a song by Valdemar Henrique. It's chamber music, and it's a story of Tajapanema, who is a girl's mother, and she's desperate because her girl disappeared.
Right.
And it's the story of the Boto, right?
And it's the story of the Boto because she disappeared running after the Boto. And here we have the song, and I would ask Claudio to sing the song.
Will I have the courage to sing that to an audience
Sure.
like that? Anyway, but I'll do my best in order not to be flat, right, David? The song is by Valdemar Henrique, as Vera has just said, a very, very good composer, and it tells the story of a mother, Tajapanema, who is crying a lot because of her daughter's disappearance. I mean, her daughter has fled to the coast. So it goes like that. Tajapanema's weeping was heard. Tajapanema weeping was heard. Her pure lovely daughter fled to the coast. Tajapanema's tears washed the ground. Tajapanema's tears washed the ground. Her pure lovely daughter fled to the coast. The boat to my lady, the boat to my lord, who dance, the charming young lad, the boat to my lady, the boat to my lord. Ta Japanese wash the ground, ta Japanese wash the ground. If you have a maiden, watch her well. The Japanese wash the ground. The Japanese wash the ground. If you have a maiden, watch her well. The boat will slip not in the riverbed. His spell is gigantic. Whoever sees him cannot resist his charm and spell. The boat to my lady, the boat to my lord.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Claudio. You have given me what I was looking for.
Well,
This was an exchange.
thank you very, very much for having the patience of having listened to me.
No, it was wonderful.
The voice is cold. Anyway,
Beautiful.
it's a lovely song. And there are many songs like that. I'll be sending.
I think I've met men with the charm of Boto, and I'm sure lots of women I know would say the same. Do you say the charm of Boto?
The
Have you ever
Would
met
you say
anybody as
this?
charming as Boto?
charming as photo, I think would say that.
Yes. Yeah.
Mainly in the north of Brazil.
Mainly, yes. And I think that this is easily found nowadays, because our feelings have also been fragmented a lot. Consequently, there's no link anymore. People don't talk, people don't converse, as we have been conversing, talking here. People don't get together, people don't have facial interaction, face-to-face interaction anymore. So if you switch on if you turn your computer on, you have 500 friends. If you turn it off, you don't have any responsibility.
And the extraordinary thing is that in spite of all this technology, children crave that face-to-face communication. When I go into a school, there are children who are starved of that kind of personal interactive storytelling, and yet within a moment they are focused. They want it. It's a lack.
There's a lack, unfortunately, a lack, because you can. I don't think we can have feelings without this eye contact. You see, real eye contact. It's like tasting wine or having a look at the menu of an Italian restaurant via internet. I see it, but I cannot feel the smell. I cannot taste. I cannot try. It's like a book, right?
This is the impressive thing for me about the restaurants here, how you can actually go up to the counter and you can have the food cooked for you. It's a very physical experience.
Of course,
Yeah.
and it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It is something that, of course, has been happening nowadays frequently. And, of course, we have to find ways to at least balance these things a bit, right?
Absolutely.
And you do believe in it. Today it was very interesting that you started taking things out of that huge bag. And my students were looking at you and said, my God, have a look at the number of things he's got inside that bag. So It was so, and they wanted to touch, you know, there was a feather, there were many things there.
Yeah, there's a wonderful storyteller called Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who, she's American, and she's also a therapist, and she says that when we listen to a story, it's as if we're going into a dream. And when we dream, we become children again. And when we wake up from the dream, we maybe leave behind the child. But while we're listening to a story, we are children.
Of course. Of course.
And it's that with your students, even though they're adult students, when it's to do with storytelling, there's that lovely, warm
Very beautifully
curiosity.
put, very beautifully said.
Yes, it's a very special thing. When I go to a storytelling festival, and I go to many, I always go to the tent where the children's stories are being told, because that's what I love.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
love being the child again.
Very good. David, I would like you to thank you very, very much for having participated in our 2 programs. I'd like to ask to thank you, Vera, for having participated in our program. And I would like you to say goodbye to audience, promising that you're going to come back, right?
I will jump at any opportunity to return to this fabulous place, and the welcome I've received here has been out of this world.
And
So
please
thank
do
you very
come
Thank
back
you.
as soon as you can, right?
Thank you,
Mainly for
Claudia.
Carnival next year. E eu gostaria de agradecer aos nossos telespectadores pela audiência. Muito obrigado.